Hello and welcome to PocketGamer.biz's In-App Inspector feature, where we look at monetization of free-to-play games from the player's perspective. So this week we're looking at TinyCo's Marvel Avengers Academy, the setup of which is superheroes, Marvel superheroes such as Tony Stark, Iron Man, Hulk, Wasp, if you've heard of her. I hadn't. In a sort of high school setting as teenagers, all interacting with one another, and yeah, that's essentially the premise. It's kind of I guess you'd describe it as a management title. It's hard to know how to place it. As you'll see here, there's not a great deal of interaction. These are people I've sent off on missions earlier, and which consist of, or quests I suppose, or you send them on actions, a certain number of actions in order to fulfill quests. So here they're testing out at the blasting range. It's going to take Black Widow 51 minutes, and Iron Man's also there. He's only got 2 minutes left. Okay, so let's skip that one, so I can show you what it looks like. There you go. I got a little something for that. And okay, let's go get some fresh air, and you see him whizzing about the place. But this is essentially it. It's just sort of busy work. You drag actions onto them, tell them what to do, keep them doing something, and then essentially you leave it. It's the sort of game. It's not the sort of game you're going to sit and play for hours on end. It's more very much designed around multiple small sessions per day. Sort of check in, see what's going on. There you go, it's free now. Once it gets below 30 seconds, it's free to skip. So let's have a look at some of the currencies. So credits are the soft currency, even though, you know, compared to a lot of free-to-play games, you'd consider them relatively hard, as in they're not doled out especially. Well, they're doled out regularly, but in quite small numbers as rewards for quests. And you can also buy them with real money, as you can see there. And shards are the real hard currency, which are in much higher demand, as you've already seen, mainly through skipping wait timers, but for other things which we're going to look at in a minute. So here's our quest log. So let's see what's going on with Professor Pym. Build Pym's lab. 416 credits. So I can't afford that, as you can see, and that's quite often a theme, as I've said. Even though you can get those through normal play, you don't get that many of them, so I'm going to need to do a lot more of these sort of tedious actions. He's not doing anything right now, so let's send him to make some special modifications. Let's skip that as well, just to show you what you get out of that. And there you go. So we're just essentially collecting these, trying to gather coins so we can complete the quests, etc. And already there's not a great deal to show, as you'll quickly see, which is one of my main issues with it. But in the full In-App Inspector article which I wrote on PocketGamer.biz, the biggest problem was just the length of the wait timers and the sense that there's nothing to do in between. So say, let's send him out on a nice long one to talk to Jarvis. 2 hours, 16 shards to skip that. I don't have 16 shards. And Wasp is out for nearly 4 hours. Loki is out for nearly 2 hours, and Black Widow is still at the blasting range for the best part of an hour. So what do you do in this situation? Essentially nothing, unless you're willing to pay money to skip. Minions Paradise was a game that's broadly similar to this, but at least that had some mini games to play in between. There's a really quite a harsh gate almost, where non-players are just told, non-players are just told there's nothing you can do here. So you might as well leave for like an hour or so, which seems to me quite a harsh way of doing things. But as I said, it is designed around those short play sessions. But just because it's designed around it, I don't think it should necessarily mean that the player is forced into doing that, into playing in that way. It should be a little more flexible, I would argue. Here's some of the other things you can spend money on. So, upgrade your heroes. Upgrade Iron Man to rank 3, which gives him plus 20% of credits, which would be quite useful actually. But in order to do it, requires 596 credits and also 10 of these science trophies, which you get for completing missions. I haven't completed many missions lately, so I'm very lacking on them, so I can't afford that at all. But you can also pay money to summon some of these other characters at some stage or another. Here we go. So if you want to buy Vision now, then you can pay 1,000 shards, which is roughly around 16 pounds or about $20. So there are things to do, but the majority of them, too many of them I would argue, require shards, and if you're not willing to spend money, then essentially there's very little here for you. Include just all too much waiting and not enough to do in the interim, essentially. Too much pressure on spending. Wait time is incredibly long, some of them, with quite a high cost to skip them, and your shards, even if you spent money, which I did, will be depleted quite quickly, and as you can see, not much progress to show for it. So I think people, even if they do spend, will quickly realise, all but the most die-hard Marvel fans will quickly realise that there is little value here and not worth sticking with. I mean, no matter how much you love quip-laden dialogue and sort of fan servicey interaction between characters, it's only so much you can stomach, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next week.